All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have not officially begun this meeting, and I will do so some point here in the relatively near future. We're trying something different this week that we hope to move forward with in order to better manage public comment and make sure that you're not confused or waiting. These are the ways that you can join this meeting on a computer. You can join what we call, this is a Zoom webinar format. This is how you access these two. And there's a phone number available you can get through. Let's put that slide up, can we, Marty, please?
We don't have a phone number. You have to have the join information. So I don't have that. But if folks register for the webinar, they will get the phone numbers.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay, thank you. Can you enable my video, please?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can you enable my video, please? And can the rest of you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
There I am. All right, folks, I apologize for the late start. Marty, thank you. This is challenging for everyone, I recognize, and Marty's done fantastic work in getting us this far. We'll continue to work out the bugs until it is so seamless we will be baffled by our own prowess. But in the meantime, I will call the Missoula City Council meeting of July 13th, 2020 to order. Again, we have a number of ways to participate. In addition to participating live in this meeting, we will have public hearings this evening. Those public hearings will remain open for the week, and there will be opportunity to comment throughout the week until council takes these items up again at our next regular meeting. In terms of our roll call, we have missing Mr. Ramos and Mr. Hess, and I believe all other council members are present this evening. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. We're catching up with our minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So we have them from March 9th, the 23rd, April 13th, 20th, and 27th, May 4th, May 11th, and May 18th. Without objection, they'll be approved. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Rabine.
Actually, that'll be Kirsten tonight.
Ms. Hands.
I think I'm here. We will have 5 committee meetings this week on Wednesday, July 15th. They'll all be virtual meetings. We're going to start the day with Public Works from 9:25 a.m. to 10:40 a.m. Then Public Safety and Health from 10:50 a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Parks and Conservation from 12:20 p.m. to 12:50 p.m. Administration and Finance from 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:50 p.m. And Budget Committee of the Whole will round out the day from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Hands. Any changes to the committee schedule? All right, seeing none. Ms. Hands, are you reading the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, I will be.
Thank you. You go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having problems getting my video working. There we go. So we have 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item is to ratify claims in the amount of $2,090,875.44 for checks dated June 30th, 2020. Number 2 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Harris Computer Systems for integration of wastewater services into CIS at a cost not to exceed $42,000. Number 3 is to ratify checks in the amount of $1,031,848.26 for checks dated July 7th, 2020. Number 4 is to approve claims in the amount of $1,110,526.20 for checks dated July 14th, 2020. Number 5 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign 2 property management agreements with Zill Estate for 301 East Main Street and 1919 North Avenue. Number 6 is to approve and amend bylaws for the Energy and Climate Team as presented. And the last one, number 7, is to confirm the mayor's appointment of Lance Cook, Hans Hoffman, Patrick Brigham, John Newman as regular members, and Caitlin Hepburn as alternate 1, and Dom Briggs as alternate 2 to the City Board of Adjustment for terms beginning July 1, 2020 and expiring on June 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Hands. Questions or comments from council members? Seeing none. So Ms. Rabine, if an attendee wished to make comment on consent agenda, how does that work?
They would register for the meeting. And once they've registered, they would get the join information in order to make public comment, and they just raise their hand. I'll share a screen here in just a second. If you're dialing in by the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If you want to lower it, you can hit *9 again. Participants can click on their name and raise their hand in the window as well. And we'll be able to see that.
That's great. Thank you, Ms. Rabine. So currently there are no hands up among attendees. So I'm going to assume no one cares to comment on the consent agenda. So we will have a roll call vote.
On the consent agenda, Anderson.
Yes.
Anderson votes yes. Becerra.
Yes.
Becerra votes yes. Contos.
Yes.
Contos votes yes. Harp.
Yes.
Harp votes yes. Jones.
Yes.
Jones votes yes. Merritt.
Yes.
Merritt votes yes. Cheryl.
Yes.
Cheryl votes yes. Vasika.
Yes.
Vasika votes yes. Von Lossberg.
Yes.
Von Lossberg votes yes. And West.
Yes.
Yes. West votes yes. Would anybody like to change their votes? Seeing none, we have got 10 ayes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. We have no comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, or the community forum this evening, nor do we have any special presentations. We do have a number of public hearings this evening. And of course, state law and our own council rules set guidelines for inviting comment in a formal way on a variety of issues, and following a staff report on each of these, council and I will invite comment. Under our new procedure, council will hear staff report. I will open the public hearing, and that public hearing will remain open until the next regular council meeting. So you're welcome to comment on any of these items this evening in the order on the agenda. But that public comment period will remain open through the week. And thank you, Marty, for providing those items. And with that, our first public hearing this evening is on a resolution amending Missoula sewer use fees effective January 1st, 2021. And Mr. Bowman is giving our staff report this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. This is the second reading motion for July 13th, 2020, second and final reading. I move the city council adopt or deny a resolution to amend the Missoula water use fees to follow industry standards for wastewater rate design and established the fees based on water consumption. I also have with us, joining us tonight is FCS Group. Previously, the sewer use fees had been revised in 2011 and in 2015 and 2017. FCS Group was hired to create a facility plan and perform a rate study in order for the use fees to be included on the combined utility bill in February. The Public Works Department is proposing a change in the wastewater rate structure so that it is compatible with utility billing system, because of the current rate structure is not. The proposed rate structure will allow for all accounts to be billed using a base rate and volume rate based on water consumption. Water consumption for residential customers will be calculated using the customer's wintertime average, October through March. All other customer classifications will use monthly water meter consumption totals. Wastewater customers who are not Missoula Water customers or are customers but do not have a meter will be billed at a flat rate. The mixed use with food service will be a new classification. The Public Works Department is requesting the adoption of the resolution to amend the sewer use fees to follow industry standards for wastewater rate design and establish the fees based on water consumption. I'd like to turn it over to Melanie Hobart and Angie Sanchez. They are with FCS that has done an outstanding job for the city of Missoula putting this stuff together for us.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Ms. Sanchez or Ms. Hobart, please.
Thank you. I am Melanie Hobart and I'm here with Angie Sanchez. We are from FCS Group. I'm going to share my screen so you can see. Did that work? Can we get confirmation?
You did.
Yeah. Okay. We put together this presentation to kind of walk through some of the background on the new wastewater rate study and some other changes behind the reading. So I'm going to start today. Here we go. All right. So today we're going to first cover, we at FCS Group were hired to do a 3 utility rate study. We've completed the storm portion already. We have draft results for the wastewater portion, but today we're really talking about specifically the wastewater rate design. We, following conversations with staff and given everything that's changed in the past 6 months with COVID, we decided that we should look just at rate design today and not kind of the larger sewer picture. So today's discussion is going to have 3 portions. The first is going to be on the new monthly billing structure. The second is going to be on that new sewer rate design. And the third is on the customer impacts and how this will affect your customers. So first, the utility bill changes. The city is switching to monthly bills effective in January 2021. They will be a combined utility bill. It'll have your water, stormwater, and wastewater rates all included. And it'll include the new sewer rates with the structure change proposed today. And these rates, I want to be really clear up front, are revenue neutral for the system. So we're not proposing any increased revenue for the wastewater utility, just a structure change to get it in line with industry standards and help line up with water usage. Okay, some of the benefits of monthly billing, there's a lot of them. For customers, the main benefit is really that now they're going to get one monthly utility bill. And when you get one monthly utility bill, that lines up more consistently with typical pay periods, and it's easier to budget for than a biannual bill. There are now payment options, which they can access through the online portal. And one of those options is to opt into an e-bill. So paper bills will still be available and provided, but now they have the option to do it all online. The benefits to the city are that they now can streamline into one billing system, so they won't have to pay for the second billing system. They are going to save money on printing and postage when customers opt in to the e-bill option. And they're going to have monthly revenues. Similar to customers, monthly revenues increase revenue stability for the city and help keep things financially stable throughout the year. And then lastly, there's going to be daily payment processing. At the bottom, you'll see an example of what the new customer portal will look like. Okay, so switching gears a little bit into the new wastewater rate design. We worked with city staff over the past year or so to talk about some of the rate design goals. And we came up with this list. So first and foremost, the rates need to collect sufficient and stable revenue to support the operations of the utility. They need to be cost-based and equitable to your customers. They need to be affordable. They need to be administratively feasible and easy to understand. And then as a baseline, they do need to be legally defensible. So we evaluated these goals and the current issues, including, as I mentioned earlier, kind of the changes to the environment in the past 6 months. And we recommend a rate structure that has a base charge for all customers, plus a flow charge for all customers. And the key difference here is that we're introducing a new residential rate based on winter average water usage. But before I dive into that, I want to touch on what the existing rate schedule looks like. So you'll see here residential is at the top. You've got your 4 general commercial classes on the bottom. There is a fixed charge per unit for residential, currently $83.40 twice a year, so approximately $13.90 per month is what it would equal. There is a uniform administrative charge per account on every bill. So residential is billed twice a year, commercial is billed either quarterly or twice a year. Every bill that goes out has a $6.89 administrative fee on it. And then the last thing to note here is that those 4 commercial classes, there's a unique flow-based charge for each individual commercial class. So it varies because different types of use impact the system differently. Okay, so looking at the proposed new rates, as I mentioned before, we're proposing a base charge and a flow charge. The base charge consistent with the current admin fee will be charged per account for commercial, and consistent with the current residential charge will be charged per unit. There is a flow charge similar to the ones that commercial currently pays. The flow charge is charged based on 1 CCF. A CCF is 100 cubic feet, and that's equivalent to 748 gallons. So per CCF of metered water usage for commercial. And then for residential, and we build on that winter average water usage. Winter average is industry standard for wastewater for residential. The purpose behind using that is we're trying to estimate as accurately as possible the domestic use, the amount of water that's going into the sewer system, and not necessarily just all the water that's entering the home. So in the winter, it's primarily domestic. You're not watering lawns or washing cars or filling pools. So that's used as the average, and that's applied all year round. Okay. In addition to a new rate structure, one of the other things that came up in conversations with staff is that the current mixed use policy isn't necessarily working most effectively. So currently, mixed use accounts, so for example, an apartment building with a restaurant downstairs, or a commercial building with a restaurant and a storefront. Currently, any account with 1 meter, the staff is estimating the split in volume between types of use. This is obviously a large administrative burden for staff currently. And over time, there are potential inconsistencies between similar customers. So through conversations with staff, we propose a new policy that charges 100% of the volume at the higher rate class. There's a few caveats to this, but generally speaking, it's a hierarchy to simplify and streamline the billing process. The first new quote rule is that anything that's multifamily and commercial mixed will be billed at the general commercial rate now. Schools with any type of mixed use will be billed at the school rate. Currently, schools are split out between the school rate, some food service, some general commercial. This streamlines that. And then we developed a new mixed food service rate class. And this is going to capture any type of account that has a restaurant and another type of general commercial. So this is designed to add equity between all customers and take out kind of that administrative burden and the inconsistencies. Okay, this is the proposed rate schedule. There's 2 key parts here. Well, the first thing I'll draw your attention to is actually you'll see that the last user class there is the new mixed use with food service. So we've added a user class to the rate structure. All the other classes are consistent with your existing rate structure. All customers are going to be billed a base rate for residential for single family. That will be $14 per month or $11 for multifamily. And then for all commercial classes, it'll be $5 per month. The flow rates there, you'll see the residential flow rate is set pretty low intentionally to 18 cents and 16 cents respectively between single and multifamily. And then the general commercial flow rates vary by class. These rates were designed, as I mentioned earlier, to be revenue neutral within each class and in the system overall. Because the structure is changing, there are going to be some small changes to individual customer bills, but they're minimal. And that is why the flow rate for residential is so low. Currently, we wanted to familiarize customers with the new structure, tie together water usage with sewer usage without really adversely impacting people at this point with everything else going on. Okay, so let's talk about how this will impact your customers. Talk about residential first. So let me orient you to what we're looking at here. All residential sewer bills are going to fall somewhere on this chart. This is your monthly residential sewer bill total. And the vertical left-hand column, that's the amount billed, so $0 to $25. On the horizontal x-axis, you'll see those are the amount, that's the winter average water usage per month. Based on the information we have, the average winter usage is approximately 5.3 CCF per month, and that's that light blue line, that vertical line in the middle. The flat green line, that's your existing bill. Because residential customers are billed based on accounts and units now and not usage, if they use 0 CCF or if they use 15 or more, they're all going to pay the equivalent of $15.05 per month. This new structure mixes that up a little bit. You can see that with a new $5 base charge and then, excuse me, $14 base charge for residential and the 18 cents flow charge, your lowest customers are going to pay a little bit less in that dotted black line. And then as you increase usage beyond that average, they're going to pay a little bit more than their existing bills. This is to connect water usage with sewer bills, but I want to emphasize here as we look at this next slide what it really means. So what we're looking at here in this chart is an estimate of what a monthly bill would be like for different household sizes. So for in that left-hand column, you'll see we start with 1, then as we go down, we have 2, 4, or 6-person household. The assumptions behind this are that each person uses an average of 60 gallons per day, or 2.4 CCF per month, and that these are all single-family homes. So they're one account, one unit. Currently, their monthly equivalent bill, all the way down the column there, is $15.05. They're all paying the same right now. As we shift the rate structure a little bit to add that 18-cent flow charge per CCF, assuming the monthly winter usage per person, that top one, single family, single person, 2.4 CCF, their bill is actually going to go down by 62 cents per month. As you add people to the household, you can see down at the bottom there, that 6-person household, almost 3 times the system average monthly usage, winter usage, their bill is going to go up $1.54 per month. So there is a range here. Bills are going to change a little bit, but it's really minimal, and it's designed to be minimal at this point. Okay, switch gears to commercial. This is that same chart for general commercial. It is going to look a little different for each commercial class, as rates are different for each commercial class, but they're all going to have the same shape. So similar to residential, we have our monthly sewer bill on the vertical y-axis and the usage on the x-axis. In this case, this is straight metered water usage. It's not winter average like it was for residential. For general commercial, the average usage is 29 CCF per month. That again is that light blue vertical line. And then you can see that because the existing structure is predominantly one flow charge, in this case, by increasing the base charge, increase revenue stability for the utility, your lowest users are going to pay a little bit more, and your highest users are going to pay a little bit less. That's the balance. So if we look at some specific customer examples here, the first 2 here are schools. So high school and elementary school, pretty different usage. They are now being billed all of their usage at the school rate previously. If you recall, many slides ago, I mentioned that schools' existing rate structure is split often between school and commercial and food service. In these two cases, when they're put at 100% at the school rate, their monthly bills are actually going to go down. And that also is in combination that they have higher than average usage per month. For the next two examples on here are two car dealerships. Pretty different usage again, one about double. They both have higher than average usage. Their bill's going to go down by $11 and $4. So not too much, but they are going to go down monthly. The next here is a restaurant. This restaurant just coincidentally has almost exactly the average monthly usage for food service, which is 61 CCF per month. So their bill is going to stay the same monthly because they are that average usage. And when we're looking at a revenue neutral rate structure, your average users are going to pay the same approximately. The last two here, we've got a general retail that's less than average usage for general commercial, and their bill is going to go up by $2 per month. And then the last one is a residential commercial, and the impact here, their bill is going up because it's at the new mixed food service rate. This particular example, the majority of their usage was being billed at the commercial rate. That, of course, would vary depending on the split of any mixed use account now. So this streamlining process in this case comes out with a higher bill for that individual. Okay, switch back to residential really quickly. What we're looking at here is a table of residential bill comparisons for monthly bills and that same average usage. So the top two here are Missoula, the current and the proposed, and then also 5 other neighboring cities. So what I want to draw your attention to here is you'll see that the existing current rate structure is $15.05 equivalent per month. The proposed is $14.95. And then all the other 5, with the exception of Great Falls, are more than those rates. So higher monthly bills to their customers. And then the other thing I really want to point out here is that in the new rate structure, we're proposing this 18-cent flow rate for average winter usage. And if you look at the other 5 examples, they all do already include flow rates, as is industry standard, and theirs are much higher. So that means that their lowest users are going to pay a lot less than their highest users. So this is a sliding scale when you set up a flow rate. And our intention now is not to do this and really impact users that way, but just line it up with industry standard and have the option in the future. Okay. This here is just kind of high-level summary of the proposed rate schedule. The top left box there should look familiar. We've already seen that. That is the new residential and commercial classes. Bottom left there, I didn't mention this earlier, but there is another large volume commercial and industrial rate class currently. We did not update their rates at this time. We have evaluated them in the cost of service, but they're already being charged in an industry standard manner. So their rates are not changing with this update. I wanted to include them here to make sure that we're all on the same page, but those are there. And on the right-hand side is the flat rate customer charges. There are a number of customers in your system that don't have water meters and have to be charged as best as possible, estimating their usage. So those are the charges there based on different types of use. Okay, that is pretty much it. So in summary, the city is switching to monthly utility billing, and that benefits both the city and its customers. There is a new sewer rate structure that is in line with industry standards. And then the proposed changes would be effective in January 2021. In the future, we're gonna talk some more, I hope, about sewer and water development charges and some approaches to future increases for the rate structure. Costs go up over time, so you'll want to address, over time the rates to make sure you're covering your needs for the utility. And then just overall project status. You can see there that we'll be back to finish up the wastewater and then talk about those system development charges. And that is everything. Are there any questions today?
You're muted, Mayor.
I'm sorry, I was muted. We'll take questions after we allow folks in the audience who are interested in commenting on this item. And if we could take the slide down, please. Thank you very much. And I have one hand up in the attendees, and that is Matt Larson. Matt, you are.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Hello. Yeah. I first I missed the general comments portion of this meeting because the whole Zoom format was switched up. Normally you guys have a dial-in number, and I couldn't get to this meeting until right now. So I'd like to comment on the fact that we're still doing these over Zoom. I understand that there's some city council members that are at risk, as we all are. But I think that this format is really encumbering the public from commenting further on these subjects. And I think that if we all wear masks and we socially distance, this might be something that we can do in like a larger format area, like a different venue from the regular city council chambers. But I do think that it's time to open this back up to true public commentary. I know there's emails and I know there's voicemails, especially for the Luddites amongst us, or the not technically inclined. But I think that it's a serious encumberment on the public's ability to participate in these meetings. And I think that's reflected by the very few people that have participated since this is switched to a Zoom format. Like normally I'm the only one talking here, or there's one other person talking in these meetings. The other thing I'd like to comment about, and maybe you'd like to wait, let me comment again when the Affordable Housing Trust Fund things comes up. But this is the only general commentary that I had, and I'm sorry I missed it. It was not possible for me to get in there.
You actually didn't miss it. I think I missed it, Mr. Larson. So that's my fault. I apologize for that.
No problem.
Little baffled by Zoom myself. We will have opportunity for comment as subsequent public hearings come up. So thank you. Anyone else in the audience interested in commenting on this item? I don't see any hands. At the moment, there's one. Aaron Flaherty.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. No, thank you. So I might have missed it when it was all being discussed, but when does the monthly bill go into effect? Does that go into effect in 2021 or is that immediately?
January of 2021.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, can I comment on that real quick?
Mr. Bowman?
Yes, this is Dennis Bowman, Deputy Public Works Director of the Utilities. Yes, the new monthly billing goes in effect January of 2021. The first bills, though, because we'll be billing in the rears, won't start going out until February 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Seeing no additional comments from attendees, are there questions from council members? Ms. Merritt.
Hi there. I just wanted to speak about some of the questions that we've gotten from emails. And one of the questions that we got more than one of, and I do believe Dennis addressed this, but I'd like for him to maybe address it again now, is the question of whether or not the graph showing your past usage of water is something that will be incorporated into the new bill in the future.
Yes, that's what we're going to look at. The way this process is going to work is that we're going to turn around a new billing system and then come about October design and try to incorporate that to the customers. It is also available right now online, just so you know, so they can go online.
Mr. Bowman, I don't know if the experience was the same for everyone, but the first part of that was technologically slurry. So you just repeat yourself. Apologies.
Sure, apologize for that. Yes, basically, we're going to be working on that starting in October to the customer starting October. We're also, the customer can look online and see their usage at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Seeing no further questions, this public hearing will remain open until our next regular council meeting when council considers this item on final consideration. Our next public hearing this evening is, our next public hearing is on ordinances amending Missoula Municipal Code, Chapter 13.26 to reflect water system ownership. We've been cleaning up bits and pieces since the city took ownership of the system in 2017, and those hits just keep coming. Mr. Bowman, are you presenting this evening? Oh, Ms. Emery, there you are. Our staff report comes from Katie Emery this evening.
Yep, I am gonna turn over the next couple to Dennis, and I'm just here if you have any questions.
Okay,
Yeah,
back to you.
thank you, Mayor. If it's okay with the council, I would love to just go ahead and read them all together, and then we can have public comment afterwards on all of them to try to speed up the time a little bit for everybody. Are you okay with that, Mayor and council?
You got that one. So you will be presenting staff report on the ordinances amending code, the resolution to establish the utility rates, and the resolution amending the rate schedule.
That's correct. And also, I'll add the in an ordinance amending Title 13, establishing Chapter 13.02.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with number one, is an ordinance amending Missoula Municipal Code, Chapter 13.26 to reflect water system ownership. I move that the city council motion for June 15th is now motion for July 13th, 2020, second and final reading, adopt and deny an ordinance amending Missoula Municipal Code Title 13, Chapter 13.26 entitled Missoula Valley Water Quality Ordinance, Section 13.26.090 to reflect City of Missoula ownership of the water system to allow for installation of new wells. Background changes to Chapter 13.26 are needed to reflect that the City of Missoula now owns the water system and will allow new water wells to be installed. The second is resolution to establish the utility rate schedule. This is motion for July 13th, 2020, second and final reading. Adopt or deny a resolution of the Missoula City Council to establish the utility rate schedule and include municipal water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater rate charges and fees. Background and alternative explored on this is currently each city utility has its own separate resolution and or rate schedule for rates, charges, and fees. To prepare for the combined utility billing, the Public Works Department would like to establish the utility rate schedule to create one document and place to find all utility rates, charges, and fees for the city. Third one is a resolution amending the utility rate schedule to increase tap fees, establish a new construction or replacement water meter charge, and establish a private hydrant inspections and flow test fee. This is the motion, July 13th, 2020, second and final reading. Adopt or deny a resolution of the Missoula City Council amending the utility rate schedule to increase tap fees, establish a new construction or replacement water meter charge, and establish a private hydrant inspection and flow test fees. Currently, the Missoula Water pays for all new construction meters and any meter needing to be replaced due to negligence by the customer. Missoula Water would like to have the cost causer be responsible for paying for a new construction meter during the permitting process. And when negligence occurs on the part of a customer, there is also no charge to place for an owner of a private hydrant when they request the Missoula Water to perform hydrant inspections and flow tests. Due to the water tap material increases by 18% since the city took ownership, Missoula Water is requesting to increase the current tap fees and split out the fees depending on the size of the water main. Multiple other cities in Montana have similar charges to their customers. The fourth and final one is an ordinance amending Title 13, establishing Chapter 13.02 entitled Municipal Utility Rates and Charges, and remaining Chapter 13.08 to read Sewer Service Regulations, and renaming Chapter 13.27 to read Stormwater Utility Regulations. Motion for July 13, 2020, second and final reading. Adopt or deny an ordinance amending Title 13, establishing Chapter 13.02 entitled Municipal Utility Rates and Charges to consolidate municipal utility rates and charges into one chapter in Missoula Municipal Code, and to enable a single monthly bill for utility rate customers, renaming Chapter 13.08 to read Sewer Service Regulations, and renaming Chapter 13.27 to read Stormwater Utility Regulations. Currently, all of the billing ordinance for each city utility were located in separate chapters within Title 13. Because of the combined billing, the utility billing ordinances need to be in its own chapter within the Title 13 that is easily accessible for both the City of Missoula utility customers and the city staff.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. With that, I will open the public hearing. I see no attendees who appear interested in participating at this time. I'll move on to questions from council members. And Ms. Wasika.
I have a procedural question. Is this, we're not voting on this tonight. We're just opening up a public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Von Lossberg?
Thanks. I just was going to highlight for folks in the audience that the Public Works Committee took up all of these in detail on, I believe it was Wednesday, June 17th. And so if anyone is particularly interested, there was some more detailed discussion and questions from council members at that point. Thanks.
And Ms. West?
Hi, thanks. I just wanted, I asked this question during the committee meeting as well, but just wanted to ask it again in this forum. And I just wanted, Dennis, could you please address how, if at all, this impacts people that are switching from unmetered accounts to metered accounts?
It doesn't impact them at all. The only ones that it impacts is currently brand new construction, brand new houses. And also if due to negligence, a customer doesn't protect the meter or damages the meter, they have to replace it. But if it won't be no charge if the customer is a flat rate customer and they want to switch over meter. We want to still provide that service at no additional cost to the customer.
Okay, seeing no additional questions, public hearing will remain open on all of these items until council takes them up again for final consideration. Our last public hearing of the evening is on an ordinance and resolution establishing an affordable housing trust fund for the city of Missoula, and a resolution supporting the creation and funding of that trust fund. And our staff report this evening comes from Ms. James.
Good evening. I will pull up, oh, there we go. I will pull up my presentation. All right. So good evening. My name is Montana James. I'm the Community Development Program Manager in the Office of Housing and Community Development. This evening's meeting opens a one-week public hearing on the adoption of an ordinance establishing Missoula's Affordable Housing Trust Fund and a resolution speaking to Missoula's commitment to funding homes Missoulians can afford. Excuse me. This trust fund is an important building block for the rest of the housing policy that Council adopted last June. As the policy states, the trust fund mechanism plays a role in nearly all of the program development activities currently being explored. Optimally, a trust fund would also secure and reinvest community contributions to housing, as well as capture the value created by land use incentives and other city-driven programs that produce below-market housing. Establishing our local Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the first recommendation in the portion of the adopted housing policy that calls for aligning and leveraging existing resources to support housing. Staff have been working for the past several months on our approach to establishing our local trust fund. In addition to doing research on best practices for local housing trust funds and looking at example ordinances from other places across the country, including some in New Mexico, California, Oregon, and Massachusetts. We've also collaborated extensively with a variety of our other city departments and leadership, including the clerk's office, the city attorney's office, finance, parks and recreation, public works, transportation, and the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. The adopted housing policy calls on the city to do 4 things in this area. First is to adopt an ordinance establishing the trust fund. Second is align existing funding sources with the fund, to create an allocation and administration process, and then to explore new funding sources. The original intent of the trust fund is really to create a local, reliable, and flexible funding source to support our housing efforts, especially as federal resources become less reliable. So as I mentioned, based on our research and conversation with folks in other departments, we created this approach that you have before you to establishing our local trust fund. First, we wrote the ordinance, which establishes the fund in city code. And it's really important to sort of set the bounds for what the fund can be used on, set some key definitions. And that's mostly why these trust funds tend to live as ordinance or city code. We also created the funding commitments resolution, speaking to the city's larger strategy to align resources and make explicit the intersections that we know exist between housing, health, transportation, parks, and redevelopment, and to commit to using housing as a lens for these other funding resources that we know cannot be placed directly into the trust fund. So adopting the ordinance and resolution are really the first steps in a multi-phased process for establishing the local trust fund. Once we have the mechanism in city code and a shared understanding of our commitment to support housing with city resources, we will turn to the administrative and oversight pieces of the fund. These will include an annual look at the data by drafting a housing assessment report that examines housing indicators in the community like cost burden, average rent, home prices, among other things. And this report will also eventually report on outcomes achieved in the prior year's trust fund allocations. From that, we will develop clear policies and procedures for how our office will administer the trust fund, building from key provisions that are set out in the ordinance about uses, definitions, and requirements. We will annually create an allocation plan, which will speak to the findings of the assessment report and how those have shaped funding priorities for the upcoming year. And based on the assessment report and the allocation plan, we will create a request for proposals or an application form as the tool for awarding funds. And all of these pieces of the trust fund cycle need some sort of community oversight. And that's where the Citizen Advisory Committee comes in, which the ordinance speaks to. Based on the basic parameters discussed in the draft ordinance, we will establish the committee to help oversee the fund, make sure that the trust fund is being administered towards the right goals and that it's meeting those goals. And we believe this advisory committee should reflect the Missoula that it serves. And so that's why the ordinance speaks to diversity being an important element of the committee. So since we presented these initial documents on June 17th at the Committee of the Whole, we have been working, meeting with folks and actively soliciting public comment on the trust fund documents. We've had a lot of conversations via Zoom and phone call and email with community members, local coalitions, and housing partners looking at the draft documents. The documents, along with some specific prompts, were also published on our Engage Missoula Housing Policy Project page. And we've sent several rounds of emails to partners and a listserv of interested Missoulians and distributed documents through our partner networks as well. And based on all of this outreach over the past several weeks, we heard some really great feedback on ways to strengthen the resolution, additional statements that could be added, improving some definitions in the ordinance document, and a few other items. So based on these conversations and the online feedback we received, we've incorporated any basic text edits into the documents. Attached to the meeting information and agenda, you'll find a marked up version of each document showing those text changes that we've made, as well as a clean version with changes incorporated. Any major suggested changes that constituted a shift in intent or outcome or uses of the fund, we've compiled in a summary of public comment document for council to consider. And I just want to briefly say that we are really appreciative of all the engagement and the conversations we've had over the past several weeks. It's been challenging in these times when we can't have meetings as we usually do, but folks have shown up via Zoom and email and everything else, and we're really appreciative of that feedback. So next Monday, July 20th, when the public hearing closes, there will be two recommended motions before council. One is for the ordinance and the other for the resolution, and those are here on the screen. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that folks have.
Thank you, Ms. James. And with that, I will open the public hearing, and I will take attendees in the order they raise their hands. And we'll begin with Mr. Larson.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
I'm still wondering what these new sources of funding are. Still haven't heard what these new sources of funding are. To draw awareness to the fact that this is most likely just another slush fund for the city using dollars this type of trust fund. So it's a lot of question marks on how to fund this thing. And RA also has those same questions. It's wondering like what is the use, and if it's not completely controlled by the city and the city council, and actually it must have advisory, then are the citizen advisors appointed by the mayor, the president of the city council, and whomever will be appointed to trust? Will always be out trumped by the 6 votes of the city council members that are on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund panel. I just think I'm seeing any of the draft. I'm not seeing any from city. And we currently live in a city that is 33rd in the nation for income disparity. And there is an affordable housing crisis going on. We need our city council members to be conscious of this and our mayor to be conscious. And I don't think creating a slush fund with no oversight from anyone else other than the people in power right now are having a problem delivering affordable housing as is. I just don't the process, for creating this type of thing. But again, that's just me. I'm no professional in this realm. I just have a lot of questions, and I've yet to see any Montana James as far as that's concerned, or any questions furthermore from city council that are really substantive. And it's kind of embarrassing because you guys are and elected by the citizens of this city, and there is a huge problem that is being neglected or being given lip service, in my opinion. Thank you for your doing to alleviate the affordable housing issues in Montana, but I think we need to be doing better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Carissa Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor Engen and City Council members. My name is Carissa Trujillo, and I'm here as a representative for the Missoula Home Coalition. The Missoula Home Coalition is a group of organizations and citizens that advocates for policies and initiatives to meet the diverse housing needs of all Missoulians. First, we're very pleased to support the City Office of Housing and Community Development's proposal to create a Missoula Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and appreciate your consideration of this critical fund. In addition to our support, we have suggestions for changes and additions based on our collective housing knowledge, with hopes that those changes will be incorporated into the resolution and ordinance language. The coalition would like to see the council increase the annual minimum amount of general fund dollars to be placed in the trust to at least $500,000 per year. Acknowledge in the resolution that housing is a human right. Rename the Citizen Advisory Committee to the Citizens Oversight Committee and require that that committee be comprised of at least 50% renters. We ask that you require the committee to include 1 member designated by the Missoula Home Coalition and 1 member designated by Common Good Missoula or such similar organizations as succeed them in the future. We ask that you require annual evaluation and reporting to council of the Citizen Oversight Committee structure and in the selection of membership. The coalition believes that it will be necessary and extremely valuable to give preferential assignment to people from the following groups: Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people with disabilities, and people who have been incarcerated, as well as people who have received housing assistance in the past. We ask that you empower this oversight committee to have shared authority over the formation of and all subsequent changes to the administrative policies and procedures of the Housing Trust Fund. The Home Coalition recognizes that future mayors may not support the Housing Trust Fund in the way that our current mayor does, and placing control of administrative policies in the hands of one person could put the future efficacy of the fund at risk. The administrative policies to be developed will form many of the most important pieces of the Housing Trust Fund, including how the money will be allotted, for what types of projects, and with which strings attached. We ask that you empower the Oversight Committee to have input on additional funding mechanisms to capitalize the Housing Trust Fund overall. We ask that you require the Housing Trust Fund funds as a public investment to be prioritized for investment in homes that will be permanently affordable. This is critical to ensure Missoula's stock of homes people can afford continues to grow over the long term. And we wish to acknowledge that while the $10 million commitment to housing is significant and critical, we will continue to need to increase our commitment to this work as a city, both in the dollar amount and the range of approaches that are needed to advance opportunities for homes that Missoulians can afford. We thank you for your time and commitment to this goal that all Missoulians have a safe, healthy home. The coalition organization members who made these recommendations include Homeward, NeighborWorks Montana, the North Missoula Community Development Corporation, Trust Montana, the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative, Missoula Housing Authority, Habitat for Humanity, and the Human Resource Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And Justice Ender.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I would like to second a lot of the things the previous speaker just mentioned, and I will quickly just say that I'm a person with a disability. I'm a citizen, and I've also worked somewhere serving a lot of other citizens with disabilities. Lack of affordable and accessible housing in Missoula is a constant barrier. Without appropriate housing, transportation, employment, and a lot of other goals can't happen. I would encourage the city to create this trust fund and pay for both new housing and housing modifications for people to have accessible homes, so people can be diverted from unnecessary institutionalization and participate fully in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have caller ending in 8306.
Hello, I just want to clarify. My name is Benny Lacayo, spelled L-A-C-A-Y-O. And I also have two other people with me on the line. I'm a leader within Common Good Missoula, an organization of over 30 member organizations. We are committed to bridging divides and building citizen leaderships among thousands of everyday people in Missoula. I first want to thank you all for your hard work as our elected officials, especially the work you have already put into the Housing Trust Fund. I'm guessing it's been a lot of long hours and late nights. The recent murder of George Floyd has brought to the forefront, again, the current and historical reality of systemic racism across our country and in Missoula. Following the leadership of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color locally, we are asking for the following. Commit to an anti-racist frame for the Housing Trust Fund related to the committee representation and funding. Second, commit to housing as a human right. Third, establish the Housing Trust Fund in this budget. Fourth, move towards more funding from the city's budget in the future. Fifth, change the advisory committee to an oversight committee with decision-making power, with the committee including good citizen representation, BIPOC representation, and 50% representation by cost-burden renters, and including people with disabilities, history of incarceration, vouchers, labor representation, and eventually renters living in the HTF housing. Ensure broad parameters that don't exclude any funding mechanisms. Also, I have with me on the phone, like I said, two other individuals also eager to tell their own story. If I could also allow them to have their 2 minutes, we would appreciate it. In non-COVID times, we would all be in a room together and we would ask about 300 people to stand up right now. Out of respect for your time, many of us emailed you a personalized letter with a subject line, Common Good Missoula Housing Trust Fund. Please take the time to research that subject line to see those letters. Thank you for listening to our stories. I have been a local community member for about 2.5 years now. I came way of the pre-release center. I started my introduction as a community member and not as someone who committed a felony for two reasons. One, the negative stigma placed on returning citizens, and second, that is not who I am now. My negative actions in my past do not define who I am today. I am a different person now. I have learned to work through my negative behaviors, and I am now living a positive lifestyle. I am also part of a nonprofit group called Welcome Back. We help returning citizens find housing. Doing what I do, I meet a lot of good people facing hard times, and housing is at the top of their list. I remember when I was looking for housing, it took over 4 months to do so. Luckily for me, when I did find a home, while at the pre-release, I was able to save money and was able to pay for first, last, and security deposit. A lot of the folks I work with either make minimum wage or barely a little above that. It would be a godsend if there was the funding to help them, to help those in need in finding permanent housing. I understand that times are tough, but if we can come together as a people, united as one, celebrating our diverse cultures here in Missoula, we can build a better tomorrow today. I really believe this Housing Trust Fund can be a step towards Missoula's 10-year plan in ending homelessness. Thank you for your time, and now I will introduce you to Bonnie.
Thank you.
Hi.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay. My name is Bonnie Kelly, and I work at Summit Independent Living Center, but my story starts at a time before I was employed there. I was on the Section 8 wait list for 5 years before I received my voucher, and when I did, it expired in 90 days. I had a lot of anxiety as the countdown started. I'm in a power wheelchair, and finding an accessible place to live is a job in itself. I spent days sifting through housing lists from every organization in Missoula. I left a lot of messages and had to call back relentlessly. I really had to be an advocate for myself, know what I needed in order to function in my home, and then ask for it. Then it was like the universe answered my prayers, and I found an accessible apartment that would be available before my voucher was up. And as appreciative as I am for my good fortune, the universe shouldn't have to be in my lane for me to have a roof over my head. And when it doesn't all come together, it's not an individual failure. It's a systemic problem. Not voting for this housing trust is continuing a system where people have to depend on answered prayers in order to sustain affordable housing. And that is not acceptable. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Hi, my name is Laura Bird. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I currently work as the eligibility specialist here in town for the All Nations Health Center. I myself have lived in the Missoula community for over 20 years. I have faced numerous housing difficulties throughout that time, but the story I will share here is the most recent struggle that I actually have had trying to find an affordable rental that will work with my Section 8 voucher through Missoula Housing Authority. I have excellent credit, work, and rental history, a Section 8 voucher, and I even have a co-signer on board who also has great credit and income history. And even with those in my corner, I still had an extremely hard time getting approved for a decent rental in my affordability range. I have paid over $200 in application fees within a 1-month time frame and was turned down for at least 4 rentals through 3 of them within that time. I was able to finally secure a great place through a private owner who actually charged me like $10 for the application fee. And I had such a hard time finding a place that was decent, safe, and affordable for my family. And I drove my kids through one apartment complex that was completely filthy, and there was a group of adults that were drinking during the daytime that stared us down as we drove through. And my kids were not comfortable and definitely did not want to live there. My concern is for those individuals who do not have the pluses I have in looking for housing, and just how much more difficult it is for them to secure safe and affordable housing. Thank you for listening to me. I am now turning it over to Benny at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. In closing, I want to thank these leaders who have stepped up to tell their story. And also, we're asking you to support the aforementioned adjustments to the Housing Trust Fund proposal if they are not already included. We also are requesting a meeting with Mayor Engin and City Council members to discuss these requests. We will be sending our requests in written form as well. Once again, thank you for your time and hard work.
And thank you all. Denver Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, thank you so much for your time. And I also want to thank you for your leadership in taking up this incredibly important issue. I will say without hyperbole, I feel that affordable housing is the most important challenge facing our community. The lack of affordable housing and the rising rental costs was a huge problem when I came to Missoula 17 years ago to attend the University of Montana, and it arguably has only gotten worse. On the one hand, it is frustrating that it has taken this long to get to this point of action. On the other hand, I greatly appreciate the leadership and the time and attention that you have taken in getting us to this point tonight. When I was at the university, shortly after graduation, I worked as a renter advocate for a period of about 2 years. And I can tell you, I heard some horrendous stories about lack of access, lack of repairs, constantly increasing rents. And I was floored at that time. But today I work with healthcare workers that take care of our seniors and people with disabilities. And I hear those same stories. These folks struggle to provide the most basic things that we all take for granted. They live in deplorable conditions and they're constantly battling poverty. In that sense, they're not unlike a lot of essential workers. And if essential workers cannot continue to afford to live in Missoula, it will change the character of our community. If you want an example of what that looks like, I would encourage you to look at Bozeman. I have members out there that have had to move to the surrounding communities, uprooting their families, severing those local connections, and also trying to establish new connections in a community that was not their choice. I do have a few very specific recommendations concerning the ordinance in front of you. The first is that the Advisory and Oversight Committee should reflect the communities that they serve. In that, half of the city population are renters. Renters are given lip service in public and frequently demonized behind closed doors, but they do pay property taxes because it is factored into the basic cost of rent, something of which they have little control of. They are a substantial and meaningful part of our community, and they deserve a substantial seat at the table. Number two, there needs to be a mechanism to ensure that affordable housing units that are created remain affordable in perpetuity. And finally, I ask that you consider inclusionary zoning as a policy tool, both now and in the future. So with that said, I thank you again very much for your time. Sincerely, I know this is an incredibly important issue and it's a thorny issue, but thank you for your courage in taking this up. And I ask that you finish your work tonight, or more specifically next Monday. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. And Nevin Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I would like to echo Mr. Henderson's comments. I do think that, you know, we're all very much aware of the proportion of Missoula tenants who are renters in this city. I would like to thank you for the work that you folks have put into taking on this issue of establishing an affordable housing trust fund. I think that, you know, we are all painfully aware of the fact that federal dollars being the primary source of funding for affordable housing is just simply not sufficient given the housing issues that we see here in Missoula. I would like also to remind members of council that a huge portion of Missoula residents are students, especially here at the University of Montana. And the issues that impact them with regards to housing and housing security are ones that I hope are on the forefronts of your minds as you consider any changes that you might make to the resolution and ordinance as you see before you. Yeah, so thank you all very much for your work on this issue and for bringing this to a place where we can move forward on this, hopefully next week with a vote and affirmation of the resolution and ordinance. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Patricia Hogan. Hi, Patricia. Patricia? Hello, Patricia? All right, we will move on to Ms. Davis.
Good evening, members of City Council, Mayor Engen. I just want to quickly comment and make sure I leave room for probably a whole long list of others that are in support of this effort. Homeward is thrilled to support the creation of an affordable housing trust fund. The creation of a localized fund illustrates the importance of strengthening our community and ensuring our residents can afford their homes. This fund and the soon to be created policies and procedures will leverage millions of private and public dollars to be spent right here in Missoula, and we will all benefit from that investment. Homeward is a participating member of the Missoula Home Coalition, whom you've already heard from tonight, and there has been a lot of thoughtful comment that has coalesced into those comments, but we would just like to emphasize that we certainly would love to see the resolution acknowledge that housing is a human right. We would love for council to consider increasing the amount that's contributed from the general fund to reach that $10 million goal. I understand that there's a lot of sources that have been identified in order to reach that $10 million ultimate goal. And we just hope that we can keep meaningful contribution from the general fund and that this is a high priority for each annual budget cycle. We would love for the ordinance specifically to prioritize projects that are permanently affordable through deed restriction, but also being able to meet the income targets that have been identified through the affordable housing policy, a place to call home. And so I think that there's a priority there, but I'm eager to see how the policy and procedure will also be able to achieve goals such as helping with down payment assistance, for example, for someone that might be earning as much as 100% of the area median income or 120% of the area median income. A deed restriction in that example may be short-term and it might also achieve the intended purpose. We would really also appreciate seeing a balance for renters and homeowners on the citizen committee. I think that there's been a lot of thoughtful comment in regards to that tonight. And then really appreciate you establishing the makeup of that citizen committee and ensuring diversity and inclusion for those that are not typically represented on an advisory council and for those that have the opportunity to contribute to city policy and authority. So appreciate that focus, really appreciate your commitment and your vision. And thank you very much for deploying strategies within the policy that you adopted a year ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andy Holsel.
Hi there, thank you. This is Andy Helsel, Ward 2. I echo the comments of previous commenters, especially those from Common Good Missoula, those who are, speaking in support of the ordinance and the resolution, and also asking for changes to it in terms of oversight committee. The primary thing I want to ask or comment on is the amount of dollars from the general fund that are being set aside for the Housing Trust Fund. I believe that if affordable housing is a priority of this council, and I do recognize that it has been over the course of the last at least handful of years, given numerous policies that have been written, as well as many comments that have already been given in front of council. I do believe that it's a priority, but I also believe that if it continues to be a priority, then our dollars show that. And I believe that there is money there to put more of it toward this housing trust fund than is currently being allocated. I would say that the support of this resolution, the support of this ordinance, and the constant commentary on the affordable housing crisis in this community represents that. I don't see the same level of commentary from the public in Missoula about other things that are currently being funded and being prioritized in the city's upcoming budget. So I would ask that council evaluate the budget through that lens and consider putting more of the general fund dollars toward the Housing Trust Fund. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the commitment to affordable housing, and I appreciate the previous storytellers who have had the courage to speak about where they have come from in their own personal crisis in trying to secure housing in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Housel. I see no additional hands in the attendees. Are there questions from council members or comments in advance of this public hearing remaining open for the week? I have Ms. Merritt.
Hi, thank you. And thanks for all the commenters. I wonder if Montana or Aaron could speak briefly to the ways in which the resolution and the ordinance work to create or to protect the funds that we do invest through this housing trust fund into permanently affordable housing. I know there's been a lot of comments about that. Thanks.
Sure. So the, excuse me, the ordinance in section 324.060 speaks briefly to that. It's the other requirements section of the ordinance. And it says that projects funded by the trust fund must secure appropriate legal mechanisms identified to preserve affordability as defined in the administrative policies and procedures. We have been working with the city attorney's office actually on making sure that we have a good policy and the right mechanisms in place for our federal funds. And so I think that work would carry on to the trust fund as well to make sure that we have documents that are what we need. The administrative policies would outline that in much, much more detail, depending on level of investment, how much of the trust fund dollars are going into a project, what type of project it is, whether it's rental housing or home ownership. All of those pieces would factor into exactly what the mechanism is and the period would be. And so that will all be outlined in detail in the administrative policies.
Anything else, Ms. Barrett? Okay.
No, that's all.
Ms. Jones?
Thank you. Thanks, first of all, for all of the work and heavy lifting that's gone into this. And I remember setting up the Department of Housing 4 years ago, and then all of the work that went on the housing policy. And I think I was having coffee with Erin Pehan about 3 years ago when she was talking about the trust fund idea, which is really just a best practice. So I'm so glad we're going in this direction. I did have a couple of questions. First of all, I'm looking at section 3.24.070, trust fund administration. And in paragraph D, it talks about the reserve fund account. And I'm just wondering, I wanted to have a clear sense of this in my mind because we want to fund the trust fund, We also want to be spending that money. Like, we don't just want to save it in there. That $10,000 in the trust fund or whatever amount is great, but $10,000 spent out of the trust fund means it went into housing. How will that dynamic work with the reserve account? Is that if it's depleted every year, but then this incredible project comes in, we trigger the reserve account, or what is the concept behind that?
Yeah, that's the thinking behind the reserve account. This is something that we saw in several example ordinances from other communities that has worked well. And we've also encountered it with some of our federal funds. If we have an annual allocation process or application process, and then an organization or a partner comes to us halfway through the year with a great opportunity that they need to act on really quickly. And if we don't have any funds left, then that can be frustrating. So that was the thinking behind that section, to be able to have that clear, open application process, but to have that reserve in case a really great project comes up, or if we need to have some sort of emergency response, to have some funds available for that.
So it kind of sits on the back shelf, and then if the scenario arises where we want to use it, we've got some options. Can I have a follow-up question, please? Thank you. So the other thing was the part of your slideshow where you had the 4 phases, and the last phase was basically the pilot program. It says that well, I wish I could read my writing better. The allocation plan will be presented to council. Is that then approved by council also, or is that an information only presentation, and we are basically approving allocations to the trust fund? That's the role of council. We approve the initial allocation. I'm trying to figure out where these things intersect.
Sure. Yeah, I think there are a lot of kind of intersections between the advisory committee and council approval processes that we need to work out in the administrative policies. But essentially the allocation plan will speak to kind of larger scale priorities for the upcoming year. And that is really important to go through that citizen advisory committee, to have them kind of help us craft that and make sure that the priorities are correct. And then I think we would present to council as an informational item.
Thank you.
Erin, you can add anything that I missed.
Ms. West. Heidi, you're muted.
Oh, shoot. Okay, you can hear me now. So I just have a comment, and I'm welcome. I mean, I'm willing to wait until other folks have asked questions, or should I just comment away? All right, so I guess I just wanted to point out, just for the sake of responding to some public comment, that housing is a human right has been officially incorporated into the, I guess, the resolution that we have in front of us. And I also just want to briefly comment that the funding options that are described in the ordinance are, the way I understand it, are defined as broadly as is statutorily possible, which will allow us for the maximum flexibility, innovation, and also allow us as a community to address future needs and unknowns. And I meant to start off with a big thank you to Erin and Montana and Ellen, who have really been great at, not only preparing all of this, but also just really having some in-depth conversations over the last couple of weeks related to some of the details. And I do want to suggest that folks, if they have 2 hours in their day and really would like to watch a meeting that has a lot of information, the Missoula Redevelopment Agency Board meeting on June 18th, I think was really valuable for me to understand some of the context around this trust fund. It's a great back-to-back meeting where the Bellagio is the first agenda item, which is an affordable housing project that will be coming to our community, developed by Blue Line and the Housing Authority. And then immediately after, this Housing Trust Fund is discussed. And I think the two together really highlight both the need, but the discussion that is being had around these issues in just a really great, attainable way. And then the third item I would like to mention is that I do think that there needs to be some, I guess, a way to address the current advisory body that is established in this. And I hope to bring an amendment to the next meeting because we can't amend things that aren't on the floor yet. That gives that body some more power, but also, and I guess my goals in that are, there's multiple goals around that. I think that we are uniquely situated right now between our current administration, council, and community buy-in around shared vision and priorities around housing. And hopefully what we set up will persist without any of us being in this room in the future. And whatever council, the administration, and this first, I'll call it an oversight board sets up is going to be the fallback into the future. And it's super important to me that a future mayor or a future council can't unilaterally just gut what we are setting up right now. In the world that we live in right now, that's incredibly divisive, and where, you know, a lot of our conversation seems to be like knee-jerk reactions, and there's wild swings from one political spectrum to the other. Like, this fund needs to be insulated and apolitical because this is housing that we're talking about, which is a basic human right, and our housing, you know, and our security as people in our community shouldn't be just up to, you know, people to bat around. And as a part of that, I hope to have an oversight board that is in part appointed by the mayor, in part appointed by council, and then also have one seat that is appointed by a county commissioner, with the hope of really encouraging a diversity of representation. And it's also similar in many ways to the tripartite model of board governance that we use in my work world, which is with community land trusts, where we try to have a third CLT residents, a third community residents, and then a third of experts and stakeholders. I think that developing housing is incredibly complicated. I think we need those experts that are on that side of the financing and underwriting, but equally important are the voices of people that you know, live in that housing, as well as the folks that ultimately also make community-wide decisions, because they have to be able to hear and connect with those voices. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say at the moment. I look forward to continuing this next week.
Ms. Cheryl.
Thanks, and thank you for those comments, Heidi. I agree with you that housing is a human right, and I was happy to hear people commenting on that. But first, I do want to say, you know, starting on council in January, I was not part of all these conversations that took place prior to that, but I'm really excited to be here now and see this coming forward. I think this is a giant step that felt just, you know, almost undoable 5 years ago. And so I'm really happy that we're at this point, and thank you everyone for your work on it. I have and everyone's comments. I think this has really been a really good conversation, and I appreciate the emails we've received this week. So, but I have just kind of a nuanced question here. Hold on, it's 3, 4. Sorry, I'm trying to go through my screen here. 324-30 in the definition of affordable housing. Why is the word primarily in there? Residential housing primarily for persons. Why? I'm just wondering what the thinking behind using that word and why that's inserted.
Sure. Trying to get there. That is a good question. I think this was a definition that we pulled from some of our federal documents, and that is a holdover from that. Usually I think it's intended to make space for example, in the adopted housing policy, we speak to the need for home ownership for folks up to 120% of area median income, and the federal definition for low and moderate income is up to 80% of area median income. So I think the primarily is just intended to capture that these programs may serve folks above what is traditionally considered low moderate income based on our definition and the administrative policies, and especially for those programs that we speak to in the housing policy where we see that need.
Okay. Okay. And I'd like to think about that a little bit more too. And then and 3.248, 80. Hold on, I gotta scroll down here. Sorry, I'm using one screen. So we are incorporating representation from a nonprofit that has it's an NGO. Let's see, where is that? Basically, we're incorporating having an NGO nonprofit or housing advocate on the board, on the advisory committee as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I think
go ahead.
The answer is yes, right? Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay.
the way the ordinance is proposed.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have for right now. Thanks.
Ms. Hart.
Thank you. I want to first off thank Montana and Aaron really for doing a lot of listening to the various different groups that you reached out to try and get some feedback, both from the Home Coalition, the At-Risk Housing Coalition, and Common Good. Roughly between all of those different organizations, over 5,000 Missoulians voices have been represented, and I'm sure I'm probably a little shy on that figure. And this is a topic that I never really imagined would be at this tipping point. It just feels like today, due to the Black Lives Matter movement, that we have some really great momentum behind us that can really affect some positive change for people who really have been on the outs of being even able to participate. And when I think about my own personal story of where I am today, comes back to the fact that in my mid-20s, my husband and I were able to buy a house in Missoula for $97,000. And because of that opportunity, it created other opportunities that created a domino effect to get me to where I am today. And it just sickens me that that opportunity has been precluded from other people's chances at a better life. And I know we're not voting on this tonight, but I encourage all of my counselors to come, when we come back to this table, to really be in full support of this Housing Trust Fund. This is our moment to make a radical difference, which also happens to be a rational difference in people's lives. So I'll leave it short tonight, and I look forward to revisiting this topic next week. Thank you.
Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. First and foremost, I just want to thank the staff, Aaron, Montana, and everyone who for many years have had the vision and the foresight to look across the nation at best practices and customizing it to fit our community, our needs. And it's along those lines that I would like for us to continue to look at refining and perhaps being more explicit about what we mean by diversity within the 3.24.080 Affordable Housing Citizen Advisory Committee section. I think that given what's going on around the country, around the world, and in our community, it calls for, in my opinion, for more precise language that can be more inclusive. So I would like for us to look at a way to ensure that we are at the very least addressing racial and economic conditions as part of diversity in this conversation. Thank you. And I'll work with staff to see what we can do.
Well, thank you all. This public hearing again will remain open. A couple of things I'd like to note. One is I'm grateful for the creative suggestions that we heard this evening as a function of the public hearing, that we've heard as a function of our Engage Missoula page and the continuing conversation and outreach that staff has done. 5 years ago, we didn't have a housing office at the city of Missoula. I proposed to council that we create a position and hire somebody. I was pretty dead set on that somebody being Erin Pahan, because I had seen her operate as administrator at the Poverello Center under very difficult circumstances. I recognized her passion, and that passion has translated into action. Our housing policy was a slog, and a necessary slog, as much of what we do in local government is. But the product of that slog is a document that built the foundation that gives the folks who commented this evening confidence that when we create this housing trust fund as a function of that planning document, that it will be meaningful and effective. So thanks, Aaron, and thanks, Montana, and thank you, council members, for continuing to step up. The admonition that I may not always be around, or that all of you might not always be around, is well taken. And I think governance will be critical and important. And the suggestions that I heard this evening make a ton of sense to me, ranging from what we heard from folks who commented this evening with regard to specific makeup. I do believe that renters are underrepresented, and folks in poverty or folks in racial minorities are underrepresented, and I think there's great opportunity here, and I really appreciate those comments, and I would suggest that we probably work on ways to incorporate that and bring amendments next week that reflect those notions. Because that governance will matter. I believe that we're waiting for our revenue numbers to come in. I believe that we'll be able to provide significant support for the trust fund this year. I hope that we can continue that, but I'd like this to be a big year to kick off the fund. And there are other sources, and we've actually had some private citizens express interest in contributing significantly to this fund. So well managed, well supported will make a difference. This is a big step moving forward, and I'm grateful for all of you and for the folks in the audience who are interested enough and willing enough to take your time this evening, and for all the work that you have done as individuals and organizations over time to promote affordable housing. I've got a story similar to Heather's. I am not a wealthy man, but the comfort I have had and experienced in my career largely is based on an early investment in housing in Missoula. My first house cost $97,000 too. And that was all the money in the world in about 1992. So it's top of mind for me, and I think for the folks on this council, that these opportunities are available to most Missoulians. That notion that housing is a human right is something that I took to heart after a conversation with Lori Davidson years ago. And I believe it, and I know that most of you believe it, and I think that belief will be made manifest when you consider these items next week. So thank you for all of that. We don't have any additional public hearings this evening. I will pass on communications from the mayor because I think I just communicated them. General comments from council. We'll begin in reverse double backwards screen order. So that starts with you, Ms. Becerra.
I'll pass, thank you.
Mr. Contos.
Pass.
Ms. Vasita.
Yes, thank you. I have a few things that I want to discuss tonight, or I guess say tonight. First, Lola National Forest reported that 22 out of 23 fires before the 4th of July weekend were human caused. That is not good. Remember to completely soak your fire and stir it so that there are no embers underneath. Make Smokey the Bear proud, everyone. Secondly, the mask mandate was passed by the Missoula City County Board of Health. No matter what your stance is on this order, please wear your mask inside stores. Per the Missoula Department of Health order, the businesses themselves will be responsible, possibly fined, and or possibly temporarily shut down due to the acts of the individual. So please, please, please do not harm Missoula businesses. Finally, I do agree with Mr. Larson's earlier comments that a lot of folks are missing out on public comment. And I would like to start the discussion with the council, the mayor, and city staff to figure out a way that we can safely return to in-person meetings soon. Thank you.
Ms. Merritt.
Thanks. I just want to say I know that tonight with the change to our Zoom platform to be in a webinar platform instead of the call-in platform that we had before was a little disconcerting at first. I would like to ask some forbearance of the public as we work through these issues. I think that our experience with tonight being able to hear public comment was way, way better than what it has been when we had people calling in. So while I know the beginning of this meeting tonight was a little rocky, it was for myself as well. I was getting a little upset with my computer there right at 5:59. But I think if we bear through these, that we can have a good public comment and discussion in this format. And when we talk about virtual format versus in-person format and who may or may not be able to comment, I'd like to say that I think that there is a big segment of our community for whom coming to in-person meetings is also a challenge and an obstacle, and that this virtual format perhaps gives people who haven't had the opportunity before to tune in and comment. Neither aspect is going to be ideal ever. We can just do the best that we can. But I would like to ask that just bear with us. I think this new format, with the help of Marty Rabine and Kirsten Hands and our tech staff, is a big improvement. So thanks a lot, folks.
Ms. Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank everyone who joined us this evening or who took the time to email us prior to this meeting. We appreciate your feedback, and a lot of it was very constructive, and we are incorporating it, and we look forward to adopting this ordinance and resolution next week. I do want to point out that there are many ways for you all to engage with us outside of just joining our meetings on Monday night. You can send us an email. There's a way for you to send us a voicemail, as well as comment on the Engage Missoula platform, and all of that can be found on the city's website. So we look forward to hearing from you in the next week as the public hearing on this ordinance is open. Also, we will be having Ellen Leahy from the Health Department come to Public Safety and Health this Wednesday to give an update on the mask ordinance and how that is going in our community. So I want to thank everyone for your comments on that. Thank the Health Board for passing that, and thank everyone for wearing it. We are seeing a spike in our community in numbers, and but if we all pitch in together and wear a mask and practice all the social distancing and hand washing, hopefully we can get through to the other side of this. So if you'd like to join us on Wednesday morning for Public Safety and Health, please feel free to do so. It is from 10:50 to 12 o'clock p.m. So thanks so much.
Ms. Jones.
Oh, thank you. I'll just briefly again touch on the subject of masks. I've been thinking a lot about masks lately also, and I think the big picture is with businesses, if people are conscientious about wearing their masks in those enclosed spaces, we will keep our numbers at a level where those businesses can stay open. And that for me is a really important factor. And I'm kind of readjusting my time frame here. I think numbers are going up across America and in Montana and in Missoula, and I think we're going to be in this for a long time. So we're going to have to figure out how to make things work. And I appreciate the improvements to the meeting tonight. Still got a few bumps to figure out there, but I think a lot of people are figuring out how to comment. And I know I've been getting many, many emails, and I read those emails. So I think Missoulians are doing a good job communicating with us, and keep it up. Thanks.
Ms. West.
Hi, thank you. So I just briefly wanted to speak to some of the assistance that's available in Montana related to housing. I know that some of the benefits from the CARES Act are expiring this month. So for example, that extra $600 a week that folks are currently getting if they're on unemployment. So I assume life isn't going back to normal at the end of the month for most people, and that folks who have been managing to survive whatever economic changes have happened to them due to COVID-19 might be in some more precarious situations. And there is an emergency housing assistance program administered by the state of Montana that has been seeing actually lower applications than they were expecting. And this is emergency housing that could cover anything from rent to mortgage payments to paying the hazard insurance on your home. So I just want folks to know that it's there if they should need it, and it's available at the state website, housing.mt.gov.
And Ms. Hart.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say, Sandy, thank you very much for changing your tune on the mask ordinance. Thank you. I don't know how else to put that, but it's a really important, folks, that we wear our masks. And it's the most Patriot Act that I perform day in, day out when I go into businesses or when I'm at my office out at Habitat for Humanity. When people come in, you just mask up. It just makes a lot of sense. Now, a lot of folks may not have one, or they might need a second one. And I just want you to know that Habitat for Humanity is selling those masks as a fundraiser so that we can actually build more affordable housing. I'm just dovetailing all that we do with council and with my work because they actually are entwined. And with that, I will sign off. Thank you all.
Mr. Von Lossberg.
Just a quick thank you to Aaron and Montana and my colleague from Ward 1 for diving in on some good work for next week. Thanks.
And Ms. Cheryl.
Thanks. So not to belabor the mask policy, but I am really happy to see that we've done that. And I'm thankful to everyone. I've noticed people really are wearing them. Being the representative on the City County Health Board for the council, if you missed that meeting, we had 30, I don't know the exact final number, but 3,600 comments regarding the mask policy from the county. Of those comments in the city of Missoula, 87% of those were pro wearing a mask, 67% in the county, for a total of 81%. So I think Missoula spoke very clearly about what they would like to see. So I'm thankful for that. I would like to also say it's a service to these businesses to be wearing it so they don't get fined. And also to the employees that are in those masks for 8 hours, and they're asking me to go in my mask for 15 minutes. So every time I've seen someone without a mask and these employees that are in them all day long, I think just do it for them. It's 15 minutes. So I appreciate that people are doing that right now and keeping our essential workers and our businesses open. I also wanted to quickly just read the phone number again. If you want to, I know there was a comment earlier in the chat box about calling in. So you can call in and leave a city council voicemail, which is a great way to make a comment on something, at 552-6012. And we can listen to that. That comes to all of us. So we do hear those. They come through just as an email. So please, if you want to just watch the meeting and you don't want to wait in line to participate and you would like to do it by phone, please use that. It's a great way for us to get comments before the meeting and to think those through. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you all. We have no committee reports this evening nor any items of new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none of those, once again, thank you, Ms. Reba and Ms. Hams, for your efforts in marching us forward here as we sort out this webinar. Much improved, lots of work to do, but you're doing great. We are grateful. With that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I thank you for your service, and we will be adjourned.